Now, a coalition of leaders of thought from Nigeria's Middle Belt say a failure by government to protect their region could eventually destroy the country. The coalition, comprising more than 77 civil society organizations, including religious leaders, victims groups, and also community advocates, gathered under the Middle Belt Concern platform for a virtual assessment of the state of affairs in the region. In a statement signed by co-convener EA Jonathan-Ichaver and also Kiyitwe, Gotom, the coalition decried 2 decades of unchecked violence, accusing successive Nigerian governments, including the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, of failing to protect citizens in violation of constitutional and international obligations. They noted the persistent apathy of political elites and security institutions, and condemned the false narratives framing terror attacks as mere communal clashes. Some of the key resolutions at the virtual meeting included Middle Belt Concerns Resolution, demand for immediate government action at all levels to halt the killings, end displacement, and initiate victims' compensation, call for governors to account for the use of security funds, end to victim intimidation and security sector reform, prosecute complicit security officials, and urgently revamp intelligence operations. Regional security framework. Middle Belt governors must urgently establish a regional security network similar to the Southwest's Amotekun. Right to bear arms. Urgent legislative reforms to allow law-abiding citizens in vulnerable communities to arm themselves for self-defense under constitutional rights. Now, we are going to bring on EA Jonathan-Ichaver, the co-convener of the Middle Belt Concern. She joins us from Abuja. EA, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Great.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon once again. Now, EA, let's begin with the basics. Your group says the killings in the Middle Belt are being misrepresented. What exactly is the real narrative?
The truth of the matter is, for years, for over 2 decades now, we keep hearing the first media, various groups, in as much as we've presented evidence to the contrary, they keep saying these are farmer-header clashes. A clash connotes that 2 groups of equal power, balance of power, 2 groups are armed combatants, have come together and have had a sort of warfare on the battlefield, if you want to say so, or like a gang clash. But what we have seen, and we have seen systematically over the last 2 decades, are genocidal massacres by terrorists, some of them, in fact, by terrorists funded and supported by cattle-rearing interests in this country, basically farming communities in the dead of the night, massacring children and women, defenseless children and women, in the dead of the night, are men too killed, sometimes entire families slaughtered, unarmed civilians who are in their beds asleep at night. That is not what you call a clash. Those are mass atrocities, and we've been tracking them for several years. They come in, destroy crops, kill, they even rip open in some cases, pregnant women's bellies and pull out the babies and kill and even decimate or slaughter, or rather butcher them further. Does that sound like a clash? No. Those are massacres, genocidal massacres. And it is high time, and they are terrorist acts. It is high time we stopped misnaming them. The other poor narrative that we keep hearing, and false, it keeps saying, oh, it is because of climate change. It is because of conflict over resources. This is pure land grab for land, and in many cases, not just for grazing rights, but in many, many cases for the minerals that are under those lands that we do not talk about, and it's about resources. So it's also about a resource control issue. So this is a serious situation, and for many of our rural communities, we have had almost a war-like situation going on.
Think that you should mention these details.
To represent properly.
Now, it's very interesting that you should mention these details, grim as they may be, but then you then touched on the fact that there might be certain elements like minerals involved and land grabbing involved. When we say minerals now, what exactly are we talking about? What kinds of minerals and what parts of lands are being grabbed, and by whom specifically?
So what we have seen, I will speak, for example, in some of the communities in the Benue Plateau. So I'll speak for Benue, for example. There's a community in a local government called Kwandi, which is actually sort of southwest of Benue, southeast of Benue, and it's called Kwandi. There's a community there called Moon. Moon, what happened in Moon in the early, I think it was 2013 or 2014, these terrorists came in, killed people, chased off people off the land. A lot of them displaced. They're in a place called Jatoaka now. And what happened, they took over the land and have been grazing. You can't go back there. If you go to your farm, you are massacred, you are raped, killed. And that, for example, is a land grab. And those lands have not been returned to the people. And in some cases, and that's just one example. In some cases, there are even drone footage or satellite footage that shows that after these displacing events take place, after these terrorists have displaced the people, they bring in their cattle and they're left to roam free. This is in the face of technology, modern day technology that Nigeria has access to, where they can actually send in drones, see what is going on. They have air power and all that. We've seen one or two instances where they've even gone recently, maybe I think last month, they were able to go and attack, but they go, the authorities will go in, attack and come out. So that's one example. I'll continue with another example. In some parts of Kwandi, where there has been displacement, and in some parts of the plateau, there are mining activities going on. Oh. And what is happening is they send in these terrorists, or these terrorists come in ahead, displace the people, and begin to use some, come in with mining and start mining. For example, in Lokande, which happens to also be my local government, there's gold there are gold deposits. In fact, at one time, the state government had to try and stop the mining. Now, so those are the kind of things we're talking about.
Are there documented facts to these kinds of activities and these minerals and the specific locations? Documented facts, do we have these?
Absolutely. So, for example, Global Rights, a civil society organization, has been doing some studies around these minings, some of the linkages that we're seeing with these massacres. So these are not strange. Admittedly, this has become a more recent component. Previously, it was merely land grabbing. In fact, the situation with the Moon community I mentioned earlier in Kwandi on the land grab, basically, some civil society groups went to court and took the matter as far as ECOWAS court against the Nigerian federal government. There was a judgment, but as is the character of the Nigerian government, they did not obey the judgment that was given in favor of the victims of those attacks. For them to take action, for them to compensate the victims. I will be happy to come back and talk about those judgments much later. But the records are there in the public domain where the ECOWAS court actually found in favor of those communities.
I definitely would absolutely love you to come back and tell us about these facts and the details. However, now, regarding the interests, have the stakeholders been identified, and why exactly is there no solution? Is the government not aware of these activities, or is it simply a case of interest or just sheer negligence?
It's a combination of both, and basically having a government that seems to not care very much for the people and even some of the security forces that are serving under it. So I will give you certain examples. Say, for example, in 2018, when some of the attacks were even ramping up, there were interests that represented the headers. So we had the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, who actually came out and were making threats and saying that they had attacked certain communities in reprisal for their cattle being rustled. Now, in any sane society, as far as we know, if you have such a grievance, you basically go to court. You do not go around attacking and carrying out all sorts of attacks. But they made these statements and they made it seem as if they had actually even sent these people. So this is 2018 killings. In actually a report, for example, by Business Day, they said that Mieti claimed responsibility for killings in the plateau, citing that 300 cattle were stolen. This is the killings that there were over 300 people. Now, what they meant by that, it is now the responsibility of the Nigerian government to have put in an investigation and sought to see, what do you mean by you take responsibility? Did you fund these killers to come in? And they'll do that. We also had issues where situation where we even had a presidential spokesman from the previous administration in General Buhari's administration, who actually said that if we want to save our lives and stop the killings, we should give up the lands for ranching. This was what the spokesman of the Nigerian government at the time basically said. And this is on public record. It was even carried by one of the TV stations. He said this in a TV interview. So I think it is very important for us to understand that these have been documented. Another government official claimed that they imported foreigners to come in and destabilize the previous PDP government in 2015, basically so that they could win elections. These claims were made by some of these people. They've been making these utterances on television. And to our utter shock, the Nigerian government has failed to investigate these claims and to call in these people for proper questioning. And basically, we've even heard reports that when some of these terrorists are found and handed over to security forces, they're taken into certain police stations in Abuja, and the next thing they're set free, and we hear that they say the order came from above. Which above? Now, there are documented instances of this. We're putting them together. Nigerians will be hearing from us, and the world will be hearing from us on these things.
I'm happy.
So back to the federal government should come and tell us is their primary responsibility to protect lives.
Absolutely.
Why they're failing to do this.
Now, this is what we're going to do, EA. It's evident that there's so much more that you need to tell about the instances here that you've told, and we are also very, very curious. In fact, I might be sanctioned for giving you so much time here, but it was worth it. So we will talk more so we can have most of these informations backed by facts on another show, if you do not mind. Thank you very much, EA, for joining us on the news now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.